Imagine you're walking into the biggest, most pivotal job interview of your entire career.
Oh, high
Yeah,
stakes.
super high stakes. But you are completely out of breath. Your hair is just wild from running. And you have this massive, highly visible scorch mark burned right onto the sleeve of your jacket.
That is literally the ultimate nightmare scenario.
Right. It's awful. And you'd think, well, is your first impression just ruined? Does the person across the desk instantly write you off as, I don't know, a walking disaster?
You definitely assume so, yeah.
But actually, the source material we are exploring today suggests you might, strangely enough, be in the absolute perfect psychological state to just nail the conversation and get the job.
Which is wild because it completely defies, everything traditional career advice tells us about those crucial first 7 seconds.
Exactly.
I mean, we are taught to perfectly engineer our posture, our wardrobe, our handshake. But life, it rarely allows for that level of sterile control.
It really doesn't. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a truly insightful piece of source material today. It's titled The Art of First Impressions and Morning Disasters.
It's a great read.
It really is. And the mission for you listening today is to explore that paralyzing anxiety we all feel surrounding first impressions. We're going to figure out if our own brains are secretly sabotaging us.
Spoiler alert, they usually are.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And we are going to learn how to navigate those massive high-stakes moments when absolutely everything goes wrong.
And what makes these sources so compelling is that they take this rather dry academic concept of social perception and they just drag it through the mud of a terrible, horrible, very bad morning.
Yeah, you get to see human psychology under immense stress, which is fascinating. But I mean, the source text immediately grabs your attention by acknowledging this brutal truth, right?
Yeah.
That people do form rock-solid opinions about us within seconds.
Oh, for sure. Often before a single word is even spoken.
Right, it comes down to a handshake or,
Yeah.
how you were dressed. But I have to push back on this premise right away. Is it really fair that we judge each other so quickly based on surface details?
It's a tough pill to swallow.
I mean, what if you are fundamentally a great person, right? A totally competent professional who is just having an agonizing, completely out of character, spectacularly terrible day.
Well, that is an entirely valid, I'd say almost universal fear. The thought of being judged on our absolute worst day is terrifying.
Yeah.
But rather than just, validating that fear, the source material provides this painfully relatable case study of that exact nightmare scenario.
It's so relatable it hurts.
It really does. We are introduced to a protagonist facing a morning where every conceivable variable goes wrong right before the most crucial first impression of their career.
Right. So let's lay out the baseline here. We are talking about the morning of a final round interview for a highly coveted job. And the preparation for this was, it was flawless.
Textbook prep.
Totally. The protagonist rehearsed answers to every possible question. The outfit was perfectly laid out on a chair the night before. But wait, if they laid the outfit out and rehearsed everything, isn't that exactly how you prevent a disaster?
You would think so, yeah.
If you plan meticulously, shouldn't you be immune to this kind of morning?
Well, that level of meticulous planning actually creates a very rigid psychological structure.
Interesting.
Yeah, when you engineer a morning down to the minute, waking up at 6 a.m., showering, ironing a slate crease out of the blazer, reviewing notes over coffee, and leaving at exactly 7:30 a.m., you are essentially removing all your shock absorbers.
Oh, I see.
You are setting up a system that is incredibly fragile. So when one thing goes wrong, the brain doesn't just adapt, it registers this catastrophic loss of control.
And the domino effect of disaster here, it's just staggering. So, disaster number one, the water heater.
Oh, no.
On this morning, of all mornings, it just groans, sputters, and completely dies.
Of course it does.
So the result is the protagonist enduring the fastest, coldest shower of their life. They are standing there under this freezing trickle, just trying to tell themselves it's character building.
Which is just a desperate, on-the-fly rationalization.
Total.
Because the brain is suddenly flooded with cortisol, the plan has broken, comfort is gone, and the body is literally in a state of physical shock from the cold water.
Right, and then we hit disaster number two, which is the blazer.
The famous scorch mark.
Yes. They go to iron out this tiny crease from the jacket they laid out the night before. But because they are now rushing, because the adrenaline and panic are just building from that freezing shower, they leave the iron on the fabric a fraction too long.
Just a second too long.
And they scorch the sleeve, a highly visible burn mark right on the arm. So they have to ditch the perfect outfit and swap it for a backup significantly less impressive jacket.
And, I mean, the physical damage to the jacket is unfortunate, but the psychological damage is so much heavier.
Right.
Because that scorch mark becomes a beacon for all their mounting anxiety. The cognitive load of the morning has suddenly doubled, because now they are not just thinking about interview questions, they are fixated on their wardrobe failure.
It reminds me of another fantastic anecdote from the source material regarding this DIY room painting disaster.
Oh, the skirting board story.
Yeah, so someone decides to paint a spare room to save a bit of money, but they fail to tape off the skirting boards properly. So they end up with this faint blue line running along the bottom of a wall that is supposed to be pristine white.
And you just can't unsee it.
Exactly. They get hyperfixated on that one mistake, so they rush the rest of the job, they run out of paint halfway through the second coat, and then for the grand finale, they knock an entire full tray of paint off a ladder straight onto the carpet.
Which is just a textbook cascading failure.
Yeah, whether you are prepping for an interview or painting a spare room, our initial mistakes tend to snowball. Like panic breeds clumsiness.
It really does.
You scorch the blazer because you were rushing from the cold shower. You knock the paint over because your brain is completely overloaded by the frustration of that blue line.
And physical disasters like spilled paint, broken heaters, ruined clothes. Those are tangible problems we can see. But how does the human mind cope when the external world seemingly turns against you in a way you just can't control?
Right.
How do we function when the environment itself feels actively hostile to our goals?
And the universe was definitely feeling hostile that morning because we were only halfway through the nightmare. Now we enter the commute from hell.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Our protagonist leaves the flat already running behind schedule, wearing the backup jacket, and they arrive at the bus stop just in time to watch their usual bus completely sail past.
It doesn't even slow down, right?
Doesn't even slow down. It's totally packed full.
So now they are entirely at the mercy of public transit, which is a massive trigger for feeling out of control.
Totally.
The rigid schedule from the night before has entirely collapsed.
So they're standing there, anxiously checking their watch every 30 seconds, which, as the source points out, is a completely bizarre human stick.
We all do it, though.
We all do it.
Yeah.
Even though staring at a watch possesses absolutely zero magical power to make the next bus appear faster.
None at all.
So finally, a second bus arrives. But it doesn't just drive to the destination, it crawls. It hits every single red light. It stops at every conceivable junction.
And this is where a fascinating psychological turning point happens. The text describes a very specific reaction to this compounding stress.
Yeah.
Instead of having a total breakdown on the bus, the protagonist enters a state the text calls detached calm.
Detached calm. Like, how does that even happen? How do you go from a pounding heart and checking your watch every 30 seconds to a state of calm while sitting in gridlock traffic?
It actually comes down to biology and cognitive fatigue.
Okay.
The human brain simply cannot sustain a state of high alert panic indefinitely. Pumping out adrenaline is metabolically expensive.
That makes sense.
So after the cold shower, the ruined jacket, and the missed bus, the brain's panic reserves are essentially depleted.
Wow.
So the protagonist literally just grits their teeth and accepts that the morning is cursed. They transition from fighting the reality of the situation to simply watching it unfold. It is a profound shift from active panic to a kind of stress-induced acceptance.
Like your brain just short circuits from the overload and decides, fine, burn the blazer, stop the bus. Let's just see how bad this can actually get.
Exactly. And the sources connect this to another great observational story. One of the authors talks about going on a hike with friends. The weather suddenly turns and they get absolutely drenched in a downpour on the way back down the mountain.
Which is a completely miserable experience in the moment.
Entirely miserable. But as they point out, once you are soaked to the bone, a strange, counterintuitive satisfaction sets in.
Really?
Yeah, because you are already completely wet, you stop worrying about stepping in puddles, you stop trying to dodge the raindrops, you just accept the reality of being wet.
Right, what's a little more water at that point?
Exactly. And suddenly, the friction of fighting the environment is gone. Plus, it makes getting home to dry clothes and a hot drink incredibly satisfying. It is about finding the silver lining in the total loss of control.
So, if you are listening right now, try to put yourself in that exact state of stress-induced acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
You survived the freezing shower, you are wearing the backup jacket, you survived the crawling bus. You finally walk through the doors of the office with wild, wind-blown hair completely off your perfectly engineered schedule.
Just a mess.
Just a mess. How do you even begin to project confidence? Like, how do you mask the fact that you feel like a walking disaster?
Well, the answer involves a massive psychological revelation about how other people actually perceive us, paired with a bit of cosmic irony.
So let's look at the climax of this disastrous morning. The protagonist arrives at the office with exactly 2 minutes to spare.
Cutting it so close. So close. They're totally flustered, but doing their absolute best to fake some level of professional composure. They walk up to the receptionist, announce they are here for the interview, and the receptionist tells them to take a seat. Why? Because the interviewer is also running late.
The ultimate plot twist.
I know. All that panic, all that rushing, the scorched blazer, the agonizing bus ride, and they were keeping the exact same time as the person interviewing them.
The universe grants a tiny moment of grace.
Yeah.
But the psychological impact of that realization is what truly changes the outcome of the day.
It totally changed the game for them. Because the interview itself ended up going incredibly well.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, the protagonist was calm, answered questions clearly, and even made the interviewers laugh. Why? Because after surviving the broken water heater and the bus ride, the actual interview questions felt incredibly easy by comparison.
The baseline of stress had been completely reset.
Exactly. If you can survive the morning from hell, you can easily talk about your 5-year plan. And 3 days later, they got the email offering them the job. See, we started this deep dive terrified that a bad morning would ruin a first impression. But it didn't.
No.
The windblown hair and the backup jacket didn't disqualify them, which brings us to a core academic concept highlighted in our source material. It is a powerful cognitive bias known as the spotlight effect.
Because the protagonist was absolutely terrified that their messy hair or their less impressive jacket would act as this giant flashing neon sign broadcasting their failure.
And the spotlight effect explains why we feel that way. It proves that we massively, consistently overestimate how much other people notice our small imperfections.
Right.
We assume we are the center of everyone else's attention because fundamentally we are trapped in an egocentric perspective. You experience every single one of your own stumbles, so your brain naturally assumes everyone else is logging those stumbles too.
It's like assuming everyone else is watching a movie where you are the main character, when in reality they are all the main characters in their own movies, and you are just a blurry background extra in a coffee shop scene.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Everyone else is too preoccupied with their own worries, their own insecurities, and their own complicated mornings to scrutinize your details.
Yeah.
The interviewer, who was running late, wasn't looking at the candidate's backup jacket. They were entirely consumed by their own internal monologue about why their own schedule was falling apart.
And there is a fantastic piece of supporting evidence for this in the sources. It details a story about showing up to a coffee meeting.
Oh, I loved this part.
Yeah, so the person was told it was a casual meeting, so they dressed down. But when they arrived, it turned out to be a much more formal event. The other person was in a full suit.
Oh, that's the worst feeling.
It's awful. Our storyteller sat there feeling hopelessly, agonizingly underdressed the entire time. The internal spotlight was just burning hot. They thought the entire conversation was tainted by their wardrobe mistake.
But what was the actual external reality?
The other person barely noticed. They didn't even mention it. They ended up having a fantastic, really productive conversation. The source makes such a vital point here. The friction between our internal monologue, which is screaming, "This is a disaster, everyone is judging me," and the external reality is massive.
Huge.
The story we tell ourselves in the moment is almost always far more dramatic than the truth.
People are inherently much more forgiving of our visual and situational flaws than we give them credit for. It is a profoundly liberating realization once you internalize it.
So if the spotlight effect proves that people aren't hyper-fixating on our physical flaws, how do we apply this grace to how we act and speak?
That's the real question.
Like, how does someone use this to their advantage when they're under intense pressure, specifically when communicating? Because the source material pivots to a highly relevant question raised by a listener of their original show. They ask, how can someone sound more confident in high-stakes situations like interviews, specifically when communicating in a second language, like English?
And communicating in a second language during an interview is the perfect arena to test the spotlight effect.
For sure.
Because every single word feels high stakes. Every slight grammatical error feels like a scorch mark on your blazer. The cognitive load is immense because you are trying to manage your professional persona while simultaneously translating vocabulary in real time.
Right. So what does the source material advise for someone trapped under that specific spotlight?
The text outlines three very actionable pieces of advice, and they're all rooted in overcoming this cognitive bias.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, don't fake it. Don't try to sound like a native speaker if you aren't one. Don't put on an act or try to use overly complex corporate jargon just to sound impressive.
That makes total sense. Because
Yeah.
trying to fake native fluency just generates more cognitive load, right?
Exactly.
It is like trying to execute a flawless, complex dance routine when you haven't fully learned the basic steps. It leads directly to that cascading failure we saw with the DIY painting.
Right. Your goal shouldn't be perfection. Your goal should be to present a clear, thoughtful version of yourself.
Okay, love that.
The second piece of advice tackles the hardest part of being nervous. Slow down.
Oh, that's hard to do.
It is. When we are anxious, our internal metronome speeds up. We view silence as a void that exposes our lack of knowledge. We rush to fill every single second because silence feels like failure.
This is where time perception gets really interesting. Because of the adrenaline, taking a 3-second pause feels like an absolute eternity to the speaker.
It feels like an hour.
It really does. You feel like the entire room is staring at you, just waiting
Yeah.
for you to crash. But to the listener across the table, those 3 seconds don't read as panic.
Not at all.
A short pause makes you look considered. It makes you look like a thoughtful person who is carefully constructing a meaningful answer. The internal time feels agonizing, but the external time just sounds like confident pacing.
Spot on. And the third piece of advice is to give yourself permission to rephrase.
Give yourself permission.
Okay. Yeah, if you stumble over a sentence or if the first attempt doesn't come out right, just stop, take a breath, and rephrase it.
Right.
Native speakers do this constantly in everyday conversation. We start a sentence, lose our train of thought, and just start over. We just don't notice it when we do it ourselves.
Right. We only notice it when we feel the spotlight on us.
Yeah.
We think the interviewer is sitting there with a red pen, grading our vocabulary and deducting points for every pause or grammatical slip.
But they aren't. The listener sitting across from you is just waiting for the core message. They are trying to understand your idea.
Yeah.
They are not scrutinizing the mechanics of your sentence structure. They just want to connect with you as a human being. The spotlight isn't on your grammar, it is on your meaning.
That is incredibly freeing because whether it is a scorch mark on a backup jacket or a stumbled sentence in an interview, the person across the table is largely oblivious to the internal disaster you're experiencing.
They really are.
They're just happy you showed up and they're hoping to have a good conversation.
And the overarching theme of all these sources is that human connection is fundamentally resilient. It can survive a cold shower, a late bus, and a less than perfect vocabulary.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, what are the main takeaways for you, the listener? Well, first impressions do matter. Of course they do.
Definitely.
But they matter far, far less than our anxious, panicked brains tell us in the moment. The people sitting across the table from you, whether it is a final round job interview, a formal coffee meeting, or just a new acquaintance, are usually much more forgiving and self-absorbed than you expect them to be.
And I strongly encourage you to carry this knowledge with you the next time a well-laid plan completely falls apart, because it will.
But it definitely will.
The water heater will break, the bus will drive past without stopping. When you feel flustered, when you feel that panic rising and the cognitive overload setting in, remember the spotlight effect?
Yes.
Let go of the scorched blazer. Accept the stress of the moment. Allow for that detached calm and just focus on the conversation in front of you.
Let go of the illusion of total control and just be present.
Beautifully said.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over on your own.
Okay, let's hear it.
So we've spent this entire time talking about how to survive the spotlight and manage our own anxiety. But let's flip the concept entirely.
I like where this is going.
If the spotlight effect means that almost everyone in the world is walking around totally preoccupied with their own internal worries, their own insecurities, and their own messy hair, well, imagine how much power and influence you could wield if you were the one person in the room who turned your spotlight entirely outward.
Oh, wow.
Right. What if you took all that frantic energy you spend worrying about how you look or how you sound and used it to give the other person your absolute undivided attention? How would that change the very nature of the first impression you make?
That is a phenomenal question to ponder. Because true charisma is often just the rare ability to make someone else feel like they are the only person in the room.
It is something to think about the next time you are standing in the rain, waiting for a late bus. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We really appreciate you spending your time with us, and we promise to be back with more surprising insights next time.
Keep questioning those assumptions, and we will see you on the next deep dive.